Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joe Sked, and joining me for the latest Conference League special is Toke Theilade. Have I pronounced that right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, I just realised I really should have asked you before we came on how to pronounce your name rather than me butchering it. But we are Toke is the go-to man for Danish football, so naturally he is here to provide the lowdown on Copenhagen, who are Hearts' opponents on Thursday night in the Conference League, the fifth fixture in the league phase. Toke, how's it going?
All good. Really, really happy to be here and talk a bit of Danish football. I'm guessing that Copenhagen is probably not the most famous team in Scotland, so happy to share a bit of the knowledge and hopefully can help the Hearts fans get a little bit smarter on the Thursday night match.
Good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, I think Copenhagen, they've played Celtic a few times over the years, so I'm sure there's plenty of Hearts fans who have been Copenhagen fans for that period. I suppose with Hearts travelling to the Danish capital this week, I think probably the best place to start is, are you able to provide a brief overview of Copenhagen as a club and their standing within Danish football?
Yes, definitely. So, Copenhagen is, I guess you could compare, you mentioned Celtic before, but either Celtic or Rangers, they are by far the strongest Danish club at the moment. Actually, by far the Scandinavians' strongest club. They have the most money, they have the biggest budget, the best players. And they have the biggest stadium as well in Denmark, the national stadium where the national team also plays. So they have a lot going for them. This season, they're also leading the league, and they're playing a Danish Cup quarterfinal a little bit later today. So maybe some of the things we will say in this podcast turns out to be wrong if they get a couple of injuries. But in that case, we have to record a second version, I guess. But they are the biggest Danish team. They have the most league titles as well. Have been very, very dominant in the previous this century really. So it's not an easy task. When that is said, I think if you look at the table, you would think, okay, it's business as usual for Copenhagen. They're number one. They're probably going to be in the cup semifinal when they go on winter break. But it has not been the best season. They didn't win the league last year, which was a huge disappointment. Naturally, they aim at winning the title every single year. And this year, they haven't really been playing convincing football. I think the league table lies a little bit because both them, Midtjylland and Brøndby, who finished in the top three, have struggled last season, have all struggled this year. And they have been grinding out victories, but it's never really been convincing. It's been a bit of the same case in Europe. They were very, very good when they played against the Real Betis away and got a 1-1 draw. But then they have also lost at home to a Polish team. They were very lucky to beat Dynamo Minsk the last round. So it's really been a lot of ups and downs, and I feel like it's been more about the individual quality this year, that they simply have such a talented squad. They've been getting a lot of victories, and not so much the team and them being a dominant unit compared to the opponents. So they have struggled, and I think it's a pretty good time for Hearts to meet them, actually, because it hasn't been pretty lately.
Because I'll come on to ask you about what went wrong last season and then what's going kind of wrong and right this season. Just touching on Copenhagen as a club, you talked about them as being the most dominant club and having won the most league titles. It's interesting that they were only formed in the early 90s. It's how have a club so young become so dominant in Denmark, especially when you have a team like Brøndby as well?
Yeah, I mean, I should say that even if the club is young, the foundation is really strong, because the two clubs who were combined to form the new Copenhagen, one of them was Københavns Boldklub, which is actually the oldest club in Denmark and the oldest club in the world outside of United Kingdom, I believe. So it's not that they were formed out of nothing. They were actually based on two of the bigger clubs in Danish football who went together and formed this Danish giant. Also, of course, being from Copenhagen, there's a lot of potential there, and Danish football is a bit of a weird size, actually, because Danish football was primarily amateur until the late 80s. I mean, it wasn't until 86 that Brøndby became the first team to go full-time pro. So the Danish football didn't have that long history like in England, Scotland, and so on, where you had these teams being dominant from like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It much more even here because it was amateur football and not commercial at all. So the playing field was much more level and even. So for Copenhagen to come in with two big clubs behind them, a big budget with a lot of sponsors from the biggest and richest city in the world, not in the world, in Denmark, that gives quite a good foundation. And then we also have to be honest, it's not just about the money. They have been very, very, very good. The 90s were a bit difficult for them. They had to find the legs and everything. Brøndby was dominant, of course, at that time. But really, the changing for them was then when they hired Roy Hodgson, who then went to become Liverpool coach, English national team coach, and everything later. He laid a foundation and was very, very forward-thinking. I know that's not really what people think about him today, but when he came to them in, I think it was around 2000, he laid the foundation like, okay, Copenhagen has to play like this, 4-4-2, tactically strong, physically, and that's really the style they've been playing for 25 years. It's a style that fits well in the domestic league where they are able to bully the opponents, but it's also a style that holds up in European football. Because unlike many other Danish teams, they know the limitations and they know how to play European football, and that's really why they're being so successful. Because one thing about Copenhagen in their DNA is, of course, winning the Danish league. That's a given for big clubs, but like for many of the really bigger clubs, European football is so important for them, and it's really part of their identity. And they have gone to do some really, really strong European results over the years. I mean, they have beat Man United. They have been in the Champions League round of 16 this year, even though they're not looking too good. I mean, the goal is to win the Conference League. I don't know if that's possible, but they are definitely one of, I think, on paper, the top 5 strongest teams in this tournament. So, like, they do have ambitions, and they're not just participating in European football to compete, but they're actually participating to win. They're not happy just being there. They want to achieve stuff, and the ambitions are really, really strong. And yeah, it's a big part of the identity.
Yeah, because you mentioned their success in the Champions League last season. They finished, I believe, they finished second in a group that had Bayern Munich, Man United, and Galatasaray. So that was a success. How would you look at their season last season with that Champions League progression, but also the fact that they finished third in the league? What went right and wrong for them?
Last season was such a strange case because they went out, and I mean, they've been in the round of 16 before, but going to the round of 16 from that group, as you just mentioned, this time it was much, much harder. It was really, really a big accomplishment, and up there with the bigger Danish accomplishments in European football, I would definitely say. But then at the same time, in the domestic league, in the Super League, they struggled a lot. So it was really, it's like they had 2 different seasons in one, because domestically, very, very unsatisfactory, not winning the league, and but then the cup, the international performance really, really saved them. So it was, it's tough to give it a grade because it's 2 different ways, but I do believe that the European result definitely saved the coach they had, because there was some unhappiness with Jakob Nielstrup, who is a very, very young coach. This is his first major job. He has been coaching in the Superliga for smaller clubs, but like, this is the big challenge for him. And there was some unhappiness with how they performed in the league. But then when you perform like that in Europe, they extended his contract this year, and I think that's fully deserved. And it was historic result what they did in European football. But overall, they were not as dominant in domestic league, and I think also part of it is it's tough balancing this playing in the midweek in Europe and then playing in the league at home, because normally the Danish squads are, of course, smaller than what you would see in the bigger leagues, because the budgets are slightly smaller, and really outside of Copenhagen, it's not common to participate in European football after Christmas. Normally you are eliminated by the group stage, so the need for squad depth is a little bit smaller for most clubs. But so then when Copenhagen goes and they actually end up playing European football until March, of course that also has an influence on the results in the weekend. Also just adjusting from playing Old Trafford on a Wednesday to go to a terrible stadium in Jutland on a Sunday. I think there is something mentally that you just... it's not the same, and you get used to these really big matches, and then it is maybe a little bit tougher to play your very best level on the Sunday. It seems to be an explanation, at least.
Has that form domestically and their struggles domestically from last season, has that continued into this season? Has there been the same? Has been the same issues?
Yeah, it has. I mean, and again, it's weird when you look at the results because they're unbeaten in the last 9 games in the Superliga. So when you just look at results, pure box score watching, it seems fine. They're leading the league. They haven't lost since September. It's pretty good. But the performances are just not very convincing. Like, they're grinding out narrow victories. Recently, they were up 2-0 at home in a match against a team they haven't lost to at home in like 30 years. And it looked like they would never throw this match away. And suddenly it's 2-1 and they're giving away easy chances, unnecessary chances. And it's just like they are constantly balancing on the edge. And it's very un-Copenhagen-like, because normally what they've been known for is just being cynical and always taking care of business, not making mistakes and knowing what needs to be done, especially at home. But lately it's like that aura of them being unbeatable has sort of disappeared over these last 2 seasons, and I think also the other Danish teams, that when they're going to Parken or when they're meeting Copenhagen at home, they can smell blood a little bit. Like, it's been a while since anybody got the best of them, but they can definitely feel like they do have a chance, and they are playing for that chance. They're actually trying to get the victories now, instead of just sitting back, defending and saying, oh, it's Copenhagen, we have to be careful now, because otherwise we will get beaten badly. Like that, you don't have that fear anymore when teams are facing them.
And I noticed that in the summer they sold, I think it was 50 million euros worth of talent of their squad. How has that impacted them this season, and how have they managed to kind of replace some of those players? So I did have they sold Oscarsson to Real Sociedad for 20 million. There was Camille Grabara went to Wolfsburg for 13.5, and then they sold guys to Galatasaray, to the Bundesliga, to the MLS for big money. How well have they done replacing those players?
Yeah, and one person that is not mentioned here is that they actually also lost their sports director, Peter Christiansen, right, who also went to Wolfsburg to become the sports director down there, and he was the guy who built this team, the team that won the double 2 years ago and went to the Champions League, as we talked about last year. So they also have to get in a completely new sports director. The guy they have now has been working mostly in the talent department before, has not been involved in the decision-making of transfers or anything like that at any point in his career. So they also have an inexperienced guy. I would say that they have done relatively well in the transfer window, but at the same time, they have also brought in a lot of players that were a bit unknown to Danish football, because where in the past they had a very, very strong Scandinavian identity, brought in mostly players who had either played in Sweden or Norway or were Swedish or Norwegian. So they had a very strong Scandinavian core. Now it's a little bit more diverse. Like, they bring in a guy from Georgia, they bring in Brazilian players, they're bringing in East Europeans. So I would say overall, many of these players are looking pretty good individually, but at the same time, they're also still finding their feet, getting settled in. Lately, for example, they have a Brazilian winger, Robert, who's 19 years old. He has looked really, really good in these past weeks. He's currently on loan from Cruzeiro, but I believe they will buy him free. And he's very exciting. Also, they have he's from the academy, though, a young striker, Chiaka, Algerian national team players, only 18 years old, who came in, scored against Dynamo Minsk when they needed him the most. And he's also looking like a huge talent. So there's that's a pretty exciting mix between youth on this team, also with Froholt on the midfield, who's played a lot this season, also only 18 years old. And then they have these experienced guys who's been on the team for some time. Victor Claesson, Swedish international, El Yunusi, that you remember from Celtic, Norwegian international. They brought home Thomas Delaney, of course, who played for Sevilla, Anderlecht, Dortmund. He is a club legend, arguably the biggest legend at the club. He's come back. So it's a very, very complete team. I would say, with a lot of quality on all positions. But I think the main issues are defensively at the moment, because the defense is really where they have rebuilt the whole squad. They have Kevin Dix, Indonesian national team player, as the only stable player from last year, and that you can see that it's a lot of guys coming from different cultures, from different parts of the world, and who are now trying to both adjust their own play, but also to adjust to new teammates. And these teammates are also new in the team. So I would say defensively is really where you can see the biggest differences compared to last season. And I think that has also been visible in European football, for example, because the fact that they go at home and lose to Jagiellonia from Poland 2-1, that would never have happened previously. They wouldn't have conceded goals against Istanbul like they did, or had that victory against Dynamo Minsk, that it wouldn't have been as close. So defensively, they are struggling because they have so many new players down there.
As a collective, as their identity or style, what can Hearts fans expect from Copenhagen, and what system they play? I think you mentioned they're pretty much a 4-4-2 team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are some adjustments, of course, now and then, but I would say it's a team. They have some really, really good ball players. They have some players who are very, very good on the ball. They rarely lose possession unnecessarily. Their striking options are not as dangerous at the moment. They'll probably play with Andreas Cornelius. Some people might remember him as a flop from Cardiff. Also, he has been the league top scorer in the Turkish league when he won the league with Trabzonspor, but he is finally finding his feet. He is the most expensive guy in the squad. They bought him back a couple of years ago from Turkey. He's been basically injured for two straight seasons, but now he is finally actually healthy again and playing. So they will have a lot of crosses, a lot of getting a lot of people into the box, and attack over the wings, basically. In that way, you can say they're not that challenging a team tactically. I mean, you know what they're gonna do, but the thing is that they just do it so well, and they have really, really good players, good talent, and then there is something about Copenhagen when they're playing European football. I mean, I know I mentioned they haven't been as good this year, but still they are able to elevate their level a little bit. They have been in these matches so many times before that they have an extra gear, and they just have experience. They know what it takes, whether it's in Scotland or they have to go to Kazakhstan or Russia or South Europe. I mean, they have been all these places before and just have the experience from these matches.
You talked about their defence and the defensive issues. I'm guessing that's probably their biggest weakness, and where Hearts can maybe get some joy. And then on the flip side, would you say that their biggest strength is that individual talent?
Yes, exactly. I would say that if Hearts know how to take advantage of the chances they're getting, I mean, because I don't think Copenhagen will play a flawless match here. If anything, this season has shown us that they are gonna make mistakes, and they're gonna give away unnecessary chances. They're gonna mess up now and then, and then Hearts really need to be good then. Also, it's a very, very physical team here. So I think if you're just gonna be attempting to do a lot of crosses, or if you're gonna be trying to go pound for pound in a boxing match with them, then you will end up unsuccessful. I mean, you need to be able to dare to play the ball and to actually think forward. You cannot just sit back. Then it will not be successful. But yeah, you need to take the chances, and I really believe Hearts will get the chances. Then the question is if they can convert them. But Copenhagen will also get chances because they are a good offensive team, and they do have a lot of individual quality, and they do know how to exploit opponents' weaknesses. Also, Næstrup as a coach is known to be very, very thorough. He's very, very well prepared. He knows his opponents, and they have definitely done their homework on anything Hearts for this match. So I don't think there's much Hearts can do to surprise Copenhagen either here.
Yeah, because you mentioned the manager Næstrup, and I was going to ask about him because I think you mentioned him a couple of times. He's been in charge since 2022, but he's still only 36. So I'm assuming that he's someone that's seen as as one of the biggest coaching talents in Denmark.
Yeah, exactly. He's one of those guys who he had to stop his playing career early because of injuries. He's actually a former Copenhagen Academy graduate. He never broke through at Copenhagen, played for some smaller clubs, and then got injured. So he started his coaching career really early. And yeah, despite his age, I would say he has a lot of experience actually, because he's not like other 36-year-old coaches who are just getting his feet wet. He has already been to the Champions League. He's already won the double, and he is definitely considered one of the bigger talents. There was some talk about him becoming national team coach, but then he already extended his contract in the start of the season. So those rumors died. Naturally, he committed to Copenhagen, where he's very, very popular and well liked among the fans. And obviously, he's a Copenhagen boy, born and bred. So for him, it's also a huge job, and you can definitely feel that connection between him and the club and the fans when he's on the sideline. And I think he has what it takes to go far. There's a lot of Danish good coaches at the moment. Naturally, Thomas Frank at Brentford is like the top guy at the moment, and I'm guessing he will get a better job soon as well. But we also have coaches doing well in Holland, in Czech Republic, 2 coaches in the Bundesliga. So there's a lot of good Danish coaches at the moment, and I think Næstrup is the next one who will eventually move abroad after Copenhagen and go even further in his career. He didn't make it outside of Denmark as a player, but as a coach, I think he has everything it takes to get pretty far.
And just before I move on to ask you about what Hearts fans can expect from the Parken Stadion and the city itself, you mentioned at the start of the podcast that it's a good time for Hearts to play Copenhagen, but also is there an argument to say that it's not the best timing because they have this cup clash with, is it Kolding? Two legs between the Hearts game. I know we're recording this before the first leg and it'll go out on Monday, so we never know what's going to happen on Saturday afternoon, but could you see them resting players either side of the Hearts game, and because they see the Conference League as important and they probably need to win this game to ensure their progress to the knockout stage?
Yes, they have the advantage of this quarterfinal being a 2-leg one as well, and they're playing the first one today. They're playing away, so I think they're definitely going to be resting the starters today. They have rested players in all the ties so far, and Kolding they're from the second tier, so I think they're pretty confident that with a return leg at home after the Hearts match, that as long as they don't collapse completely today, they can definitely finish business at home next weekend. So yeah, I mean that's an advantage for Copenhagen. They've been able to think ahead to this Hearts match for some time now and put a lot of focus on that. But yeah, at the same time, I don't think they have played a lot of matches this year. They have some injuries as well, so they don't have the biggest squad. So I think anyway, whether they rest the players or not, there are gonna be some tired legs after such a hard season. Also, we have to remember, since they only finished third last year, they had to go through all the qualification rounds for the group stage as well. So they already started playing in July, have played basically 2 matches every week since then. So it's been a long autumn this.
I'm finally just looking at what Hearts fans can expect on their trip to Danish capital. So I've been to the Parken before for a Champions League qualifier against Lille. I think it was in 2013. I think Andreas Cornelius played up front that day as well. It's a wonderful stadium. I think between 2,000 and 3,000 Hearts fans will be going. What can you say about the parking, and what can Hearts fans expect?
It depends a little bit. I don't think it will be a sold-out match, this one. The hype for these Conference League matches hasn't been super high, unfortunately. As usually, the Copenhagen fans they're used to a little bit more than playing Conference League. So last year in the Champions League, sold out for everything. This year it's been, I think, maybe 25,000. Of course, this being the second to last home match of the year, that's a little bit more special, and they want to send the boys on in a good way. But yeah, anyway, Copenhagen nights, European nights in Copenhagen is something special, and the stadium is I mean, the anticipation there and the atmosphere should be really good. Copenhagen, the fans are known for really passionate atmosphere, of course. Pushing the team forward and everything. So I think even though that it won't be full, there should be a lot of noise, and it should be a fun match as an away supporter as well. The only thing is that with this whole fall, of course, the supporters can also turn a little bit against the team, because there is some unhappiness. It's not an open revolt or anything against the team or the coaches, but it's resting right beneath the surface. You can feel like if things starts to go against them, there will be some unhappiness, and maybe that's something Hearts can use as well to get that nerve going and maybe shake Copenhagen up a little bit. But anyway, I would be very excited if I was a Hearts fan, because it should be a good experience, this, and I think a really good atmosphere will await them, and I can definitely see that Copenhagen fans are talking more about this match than the Kolding quarterfinal match in the cup. So they're already looking forward to it.
And can you still get the 4-pack of beer to take to your seat?
I think you can get a 6-pack, actually.
Oh, 6? Oh dear. Oh dear.
And you can drink it on the stadium, of course. You don't have to sit in the back either. I think they're even selling shots and stuff as well. So
oh Jesus. Yeah,
and of course, I should mention as well that Scottish fans have really good reputation in Denmark. It's always a big thing when Scottish teams are coming to Denmark, because we know that every team is going to be well supported. I also remember the national team being here some years ago, and all the news media did big stories and interviews with the fans and followed how they were celebrating in the build-up to the match and warming up and everything. So there's something special when it's Scottish teams and British teams in general, because there is a lot of respect for where football was born as well here. I mean, it is the biggest sport, and there's a lot of history that we are also aware of. So it's always fun when we get to play against team from Scotland, and it's something that people are excited about and looking forward to. And I think there will be a lot of even neutral football fans just around Copenhagen that day that will enjoy the sight of the traveling Scots a lot, and help them have a good time, I think, in Copenhagen.
And last but not least, is there anything you would recommend Hearts fans doing, or any place you'd recommend them to go for a drink or two in Copenhagen while they're there?
On how long they're going to be here, and it depends on the weather, of course. It looks pretty good right now, but I think anywhere in central Copenhagen is going to be nice. I would myself try and get a little bit away from the very center, where it's very touristy. I think if you go out to Christiania, it's always the classic place to have fun, and this alternative area you can get some good local beers then. But make sure to try the local beers, and also try more than just the Tuborg and Carlsberg. There's a lot of good Danish beers, and I hope the traveling fans will enjoy them. Just need to be a little bit adventurous.
Yeah, superb, Toke. Thank you very much for your lowdown on Copenhagen. That was fascinating, really insightful, and I will speak to all Hearts fans and say that we've learned a hell of a lot about the match, and I think it's just kind of whet the appetite for the game on Thursday, which should be really, really exciting at one of the best stadiums. Personally, one of my favourite stadiums in European football, that's for sure. That game will take place on Thursday evening. Once again, I'd just like to say thank you to Toke. Thank you, everyone who will listen and who subscribes. Thank you very much for the support, and for all those going to Copenhagen. Please do enjoy and enjoy safely as well. That's really important. But until the next time, thank you very much and goodbye.